Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Cole speaking to you Sunday afternoon, January 16th, as we now enter week 2 of Political Science 3143 Comparative Governments for the spring term 2022. Everybody, very quickly, just to go over what we are doing this week. We've started a discussion. It started yesterday morning, Saturday. We will run through midnight tomorrow, Monday, January 17th. We asked you to look at some material related to the political system of Sweden and its new Prime Minister, Ms. Andersson, for the purpose of comparing and contrasting with the political systems with which we may be more familiar here in America. For instance, you'll note in that reading material, Ms. Andersson, back in November, just a few weeks ago, was elected Prime Minister, stepped down almost immediately, but was re-elected to the position just a few days later. This is the kind of thing we would not see happening very often, if at all, in a system like we have in America. You'll also notice that in the legislature of Sweden, there's one independent and the others are divided up among 9 political parties, instead of the 2 major parties we have in the United States. So, asking you to reflect and discuss what you make of a system that's different in some important respects from the one we're most familiar with. Then Thursday, everybody, we're taking our first quiz. All day Thursday for 24 hours. It'll be available 10 true-false questions for 2 points each, based on an article we asked you to look at from the website of the international organization Freedom House, and its summary of what happened with regard to freedom and human rights and democracy around the world in the year 2020. That was written in early 2021, not quite a year ago, summarizing the events of 2020. They are still working, I assume, on their summary of what happened last year, 2021. So we're going back a year and looking at what happened around the world over the course of the year 2020. And for a number of years, as you'll find as you read through this material that's been prepared by Freedom House, their take on the global situation is that the situation has become kind of dire for democracy as opposed to authoritarianism around the world. And you'll be reading it in some detail, really, about what's been happening in countries all over the world with regard to freedom, democracy, and human rights. An important topic for us to take of in comparative governments. All right, everybody, so we'll be running our discussion through tomorrow, Monday at midnight, then we'll take our quiz Thursday. Shortly after that, we'll be getting material out to you for another quiz and discussion. What we have on the syllabus for this week is the class notes for lectures 2 and 3 on constitutions and ideologies and on economic development. We run through what you're going to be encountering there very quickly. Just about every country in the world has a written constitution. Some call it a basic law rather than a separate constitutional document. The United States, of course, started that, the idea of getting it all written down in a single document. In that respect, we differ from English constitutionalism. Now, you'll be reading about the concept of sovereignty and about the different kinds of institutions that a constitution establishes. And you'll be reading about different kinds of regimes that you find around the world, okay, from the left side of the political spectrum to the right. Okay. Different ideologies that are practiced from the left to the right of the political spectrum, including liberalism, socialism, fascism, and religious ideologies that you may find practiced in the predominantly Islamic parts of the world and perhaps other regions of the world. So, constitutions and ideologies in the class notes for lecture 2. Then lecture 3 covers economic development, raising the question why some countries are rich and some are poor, why some are developed and others are undeveloped or underdeveloped. That presentation, the class notes emphasize from much of the text the example of South Korea, the Republic of Korea, which some people still have on a list of developing countries around the world, although I would speculate that the Republic of Korea is very close to being considered developed rather than developing, such that it would join the club of the rich countries around the world of Western Europe, North America, Japan, and elsewhere. Our shops are full of their goods under such trademarks as Samsung, LG, Hyundai, and Kia, of course. Now, here is a country that started out with a kind of an authoritarian military regime immediately after World War II, in the aftermath of the Korean War, when the Korean Peninsula was divided. First, it became rich, or at least richer than it was. It has developed considerably, although it's not quite classified as a developed rather than developing country, but it's considerably richer than it used to be. And once it became much richer, it then democratized. And some people will say that perhaps a country has got to become wealthier first before it can democratize. That's a matter of some controversy. In your class notes, we'll discuss different points of view on that question. After looking at the example of South Korea in some detail, the notes go on to discuss the question of why, in general, some countries are developed and others are not, why some are rich and others are poor. And there are several different approaches to that question. It could be because of things going on internal to the country itself, or maybe something having to do with the international economic environment in which that country finds itself. So you'll see laid out for you a couple of different perspectives on how countries develop, why some countries develop and others remain undeveloped or underdeveloped and remain poor. We talk about developed, developing, or underdeveloped countries. And some people would say, well, we might as well not euphemize about it and simply speak in terms of poor and rich countries. Sometimes we hear people speak of the global north and the global south, because the wealthier countries, many of them are in that North Atlantic region, Europe and North America, along with Japan. The poorer countries tend to be around along the equator, one side or the other. Sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America, East and Southeast Asia come to mind. The Middle East as well. All right, so those are some of the questions and issues you'll be taking up looking at the class notes for lectures 2 and 3 this week, which is what we have on the syllabus, Constitutions and Ideologies, and also Economic Development. The discussion will run through midnight tomorrow, Monday. The quiz on the Freedom House material will be available for 24 hours all day Thursday the 20th. 10 true-false questions. You'll have 15 minutes to take the quiz once you begin. And with that, we will be speaking to you once again. Work on that stuff and read it and study hard this week. And we will talk to you again 1 week from now this time. Good luck.